take first watch?
Hello, and welcome to an all-new episode of the First Watch podcast. I'm Zach. I'm back here with Cole. Cole, I'm ready to embrace the meteor. How about you?
Very excited. Can't wait for this Cretaceous period to end.
Yeah. We're here, as you may have predicted, to talk about the latest blockbuster hitting cinemas, Jurassic World Dominion. Third film in the Jurassic World reboot franchise, which mostly because of Cole, the two of us have recently revisited in full. That's because they showed Jurassic World and Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom in cinemas near you, right, Cole?
Actually, I did rewatch them at home. I just rented them on Vudu.
That's the right way to do it. I got them from the library, and I got really drunk, and I ate a lot of popcorn. And I just, we just had a good time watching those two movies.
It's the best way to view it. I know that normally on this podcast, we talk a lot about high art or art movies or stuff that excites us. But I was one of the idea, what's also fun? You got to talk about some trash.
And in order to help us talk about trash, in the spirit of not half-assing it, I want to talk about the totality of Jurassic World. So we're bringing on an extra guest, and that's our friend Jake, a big fan of Steven Spielberg's action blockbuster Jurassic Park, which will be a big fixture in our conversation today. Jake, how are you?
Good. It's nice to talk about this with you all, especially because even though I obviously did see the movie we're talking about, I have watched the Jurassic Park trilogy more than any other movie series basically ever, because I had them on VHS as a child. So I have these as permanent fixtures in my brain. So I'm like an encyclopedic knowledge specifically for Jurassic Park, the most useless skill.
I revisited the 93 Jurassic Park because I bought that on 4K. Spectacular. I mean, the movie looks as good as it did 30 years ago. And then I rewatched Jurassic World 1, Jurassic World 2, and then went to see Jurassic World Dominion, all within like about 1 week. So I'm just really dino-pilled, but like in the bad way. Like in the way that Neo is blue-pilled at the beginning of The Matrix 4. I am dino-pilled right now. I'm ready to fucking kill myself, to be honest. So let's do it. Let's kick into the discussion. So we're going to get back in the nostalgia machine, and we're going to go back to 2015 when Colin Trevorrow first released the global smash hit, like $1.5 billion movie, Jurassic World. This, to me, is kind of in my memory. There were movies that I think we could put the legacy sequel moniker. Cole, we talked about Top Gun last week.
Yep.
Brought up The Force Awakens in that conversation. There's a lot of different movies, good, mostly mediocre to bad, that kind of fall within this, makeshift genre of the legacy sequel. This, to me, Jurassic World, the first one, feels like the most distilled version of the concept. It is a movie that exists to reference one other movie that happened 25 years before its release, to capitalize upon the nostalgia of people pretty much exactly my age, to go and see a clone of a movie that I had seen. And what I mean by that is basically like this just kind of takes the entire plot of Jurassic Park and just says, let's do that again. Let's build another dinosaur park. The key difference in the concepts is that in the original, the park is not yet complete, but in the new one, the park is like Disney World. It's been running for years and years. People are bored of it. It's been around for so long, which is like the opening thing about that movie that drives me up the wall is that you have an entire movie, Jurassic Park, which every single one of these movies references in some way, which is all about how you'll never get this idea off the ground because it's wrecked on several different conceptual levels. And yet we're brought into a world where we're told this is an operable theme park and we have all these dinosaurs and all these visitors, where the characters have learned nothing since the first movie. And I find that to be right away a core problem that these movies never solve, is that they've learned nothing and yet they've managed to progress.
They just stood on the shoulders of giants, slapped it on a lunchbox, and now they're selling it again and again and again. These movies do take place in the same continuity as The Lost World Jurassic Park and Jurassic Park 3. So people have seen a T-Rex stomp through San Diego, and yet this park still opened.
Disregarding continuity itself, I think the idea was that Colin Trevorrow was this guy who came from independent cinema, who was helming this blockbuster, which was a novel idea. And so in your head, you're like, oh, okay, so this is going to be like some sort of clever, subversive kind of thing, just because that's what he seems to specialize in. And the weird dichotomy of Jurassic World is that you want to initially give it a little bit of credit to just be like, oh, the reason the park is up and running is because it's a machine of capitalism, just grease the wheels, it's going to go along. And the fact that everybody's bored of watching dinosaurs is like, oh, hey, that's like supposed to be a thing about how most people these days are bored by modern blockbusters, because ostensibly Jurassic Park is a Spielberg film that is analogous to filmmaking. The wonder and awe of dinosaurs is the wonder and awe of the blockbuster. So now that it's stale, Trevorrow can come in and deliver something interesting. And the problem is that Trevorrow thinks that he's as clever as Rian Johnson and is not at all. Can you imagine making a movie that is supposed to be a complete copy of the first Jurassic Park, a movie that opens with these really heavy lighting and these real big close-ups on that dude yelling, "Shoot her!" And then everything in Jurassic World is just, here's a medium shot of a person, there's nothing expressive about the filmmaking at all.
It's a movie that, by design, reminds you very frequently of not just a better movie, a smarter movie, a better acted movie, a better looking movie, but like all of those things all at the same time. Really, the identity of Jurassic World, specifically that first one, can almost be better understood through that meta lens, because it is so clearly a sort of, it reminded me of Scream when I was watching it, like Scream 4, the way that it is so thick with the meta elements, where you've got Jake Johnston wearing the Jurassic Park shirt, talking about, oh, that original Jurassic Park was legit. Like, it is so 21 Jump Street level tongue-in-cheek with the meta elements, which is an interesting way to carry forward the legacy of Jurassic Park. So when we talk about the legacy sequel, the ones that are kind of a clone, I wanted to kind of contrast, because I really love The Force Awakens. That's a movie that takes a little bit of heat because it's so similar to A New Hope. But when you think about what A New Hope is, it's the hero's journey distilled into a really simplistic format. And so repeating the beats as a generational story is in sync with the original design of it, what Lucas wanted to write and what Lucas wanted to create. Repeating Jurassic Park beat for beat is something that is basically doomed to fail, because the only thing you could ever do would be to create it as good as they did the first time, if you had that ability. Because what Jurassic Park is, there's nothing simple about it. It's an adaptation of a very technical science fiction novel by Michael Crichton. It's a script by screenwriter David Koepp. It's very similar to his screenplay for David Fincher's Panic Room, which is like this very mechanical thriller, because Jurassic Park is a script about a security system that breaks down. It's Steven Spielberg making like a 50s, 60s throwback, like Jake was talking about. It's a John Frankenheimer, Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds type of really big, really expressive cinema. It is the technological pinnacle and transition point of the blockbuster from the analog age into the digital age. That also doubles as this thing for Phil Tippett to go fucking wild with animatronics. And then finally, it is also a meta cinematic document, because one, dinosaurs, awe of filmmaking, and two, the character of John Hammond kind of cuts a Walt Disney or even sort of George Lucas or even sort of Steven Spielberg like figure, who is kind of, almost all of Steven Spielberg's science fiction films, whether you're talking about E.T., AI, artificial intelligence, even Ready Player One has a Mark Rylance character that's sort of like this old guy that's sort of wondering about, did I do something wrong in trying to make what I've made here? And so like Jurassic Park is just this movie that's spinning 40 fucking plates on stilts, because it has one of the greatest American directors of all time behind the helm of it, who keeps everything in motion. There's a reason why no one really fucking remembers Jurassic Park 2, and it's because it does not do all of these things, to its credit, because it's really hard to do all of these things at once. And it's a thing that sort of shouldn't work. And that's why we all remember Jurassic Park. It's why so many people love it, is because they kind of connect to these different little bits and pieces of it. Trying to recreate it beat for fucking beat with the guy that made safety not guaranteed? What the fuck was the plan? Like,
I feel like, again, in theory, like when the studio probably made the decision to get him on, getting somebody who is inherently kind of, I used the word subversive earlier, but I guess more just kind of diametrically opposed to what the cinematic landscape is right now, is just like, in theory, is a good idea, just because Spielberg, this dude known for wonder, for childhood, for awe, for all of this like pure, raw movie magic. And I feel like it's basically inarguable that, like, right at the fucking beginning of the 90s is the era where Spielberg becomes thoroughly disillusioned with himself. I mean, the other movie he made the same year as Jurassic Park was Schindler's List. You have two of these movies, which your big blockbuster is a meta-narrative about how guys who make big blockbusters and want to, they have all these best intentions and creative endeavors, and how they're deeply, deeply flawed because they're existing under this umbrella of capitalism and all of these like greater ideas. And you really just feel like Spielberg is like gotten to this point where he's just like, I don't really feel like I'm okay with the version of myself that I am. So like trying to get somebody who is in that state already sounds like a good idea. But the problem is that you got somebody who doesn't have E.T., Close Encounters, fucking Jaws. Everything that he had in his back catalog informs everything that he makes from then on. Like every movie that Spielberg makes, I feel like is intrinsically connected to another movie. And if you just get some schmuck like Colin Trevorrow to come and make a movie like this, well then what exactly is the meta narrative that he specifically brings to this? Because without it, you have, again, you said Jurassic Park 2, which is a movie that even if Spielberg didn't direct that movie over Skype, which he did because his kid was sick, it's The Lost World. It's supposed to be homaging a kind of B-movie cinema that he was originally doing there before, but it wasn't as potent. He didn't mine it as well. There isn't a whole lot of thematic coherency to that movie. And then that kind of lack of coherency, I think, translates over to the Jurassic World trilogy and is deeply doubled down upon in each successive film.
I think this first one comes across very much like a roller coaster that they slapped the Jurassic Park logo on. It's a blockbuster. You kind of go through the motions, basic. And then the only really clever bent about it is that it is sort of meta-referential, but it is doing so in a way where it's like the filmmaking, the script, everything about it is so shallow that you don't have cutting material. You're not taking the piss out of any other movies in the way that like Craven would. There isn't like this humor to it necessarily. It just sort of feels like it's mocking the audience for having the audacity to make this movie over $1 billion. And then sort of shepherding this, by the by, are maybe like legitimately the worst romantic leads in a major American picture in the last 30 years.
God.
Think this was the film that cemented Chris Pratt's star status.
And this is what I'm going to say. I don't really think Bryce Dallas Howard is bad in these movies, and I don't really think that Chris Pratt is that bad in these movies. I think they have no fucking chemistry with each other, which I think some of the scenes of some of the movies of the three kind of play with the idea that they don't have chemistry, and they sort of use that in a funny way. But like, the thing is, Chris Pratt's character is like beard, John Krasinski, CIA Navy guy, and like he's the most vanilla fucking character of all time because he's good at everything. He's bad at nothing. He doesn't even get to have like his smarmy goofiness like he gets in the Guardians of the Galaxy movie. What's crazy is like his performance in those is really not that different than his performance here, except that he gets to do a little bit more smarm, a little bit more vulnerability, and he's a little bit funnier and a little bit worse at stuff. Like he fails more, and that makes him inherently compelling. This dude is like fucking Raptor God, and it's like, I don't give a shit, man. This character in the original film is fucking Muldoon, right? Is the game master Muldoon. Clever girl. And there's a reason why he's in 4 minutes of the movie. It's not to say that you can't make this character interesting, because like Muldoon is very flavorful. It feels like he just fucking crawled out of a Peter Weir movie or even something more pulpy than that.
Muldoon is paranoid and suspicious, and rightfully so, considering what happens in the park, what happens to him. But Owen Grady is just a shallow cardboard cutout of a character meant to be like the world's laziest audience stand-in. Claire Dearing is basically just repeating both the John Hammond bit and also the Dr. Grant hates kids and needs to learn how to like kids bit from Jurassic Park 1 with her nephews.
Her arc in the first film is very woman in a rom-com. She's a business girl. She's in the pencil skirt. Yep. She needs to learn how to loosen up.
It's the big city girl goes from her corporate job in publishing to the small town that is apparently Jurassic World.
Her character arc is hair goes from very neat bob to bob with curls on the end of it by the end of the film. She's got a little dirt on her and she's in the tank top. That's the character arc. Still got
those heels.
That's
still has those heels.
Not to bring a Landis into this, but I don't know if you all remember, but when The Force Awakens came out, it was a really popular sticking point with people calling Rey a Mary Sue, which if you don't know what that is it's a fan fiction term for a protagonist who is so overwhelmingly skilled at everything. I believe this actually came from a Star Trek fan fiction, but is so overwhelmingly good at everything that they kind of cease to become a character and act as more of like a vessel of like pure competency, of like a self stand-in. And what I think is funny about that is that you have these two legacy sequels that are coming in like right at the dawn of this particular era. And you get one who's slammed like The Force Awakens was for Rey supposedly being a Mary Sue, a character who fucks up many times in that movie. Whereas you have Owen Grady over here, who does not do a single thing wrong in any of these movies.
Not tactically, not morally.
No. He holds up his hand to fucking dinosaurs and they just like obey him. Like he's literally like the fucking dog whisperer for velociraptors. And we don't turn that lens in on him a little bit and be like, hey, what's this guy coming to the table? Other than like in that first movie, it's really bad that he's like coming on to Bryce Dallas Howard because you get like major sex pest vibes from him. Where he's just like, hey, we had that date that one time. You want to like try that again? And I'm just like, this just makes me really uncomfortable. And then in the next two movies, they're just like a thing. And we're just supposed to take that for like, sure.
What galls me about the Mary Sue-ishness of Owen, and then eventually Claire, because like once she converts and becomes a good guy, then she kind of gets his ability to just survive everything and do everything that he has, is that it sort of wraps back around into like apologizing for the ways that they are complicit in the creation and running of Jurassic World. Because like first movie, going back to 1993, when Dr. Grant and Dr. Sattler and Dr. Malcolm get to the park and they all look at the brachiosauruses, they have this beautiful experience, right? It's a very iconic moment, right? And then they go into the office and right away they're like, fuck this shit, dude. They don't need to see anymore. They're done. They're like, this is wrong. You shouldn't have done this. They see the magic and then they're instantly like, this is a scientific horror beyond all imagination. I think it's sort of a failing of the premise of this movie being, we didn't solve any of the innate problems. We didn't improve our methods, but we built a successful park. And so it just like within the context of it trying to be like a Jurassic Park movie, the speculative science fiction legacy vehicle for a Crichton adaptation, all of that shit just falls apart. If you try to assess any of these three movies, but especially this first one, upon the basis of like basically the chaos theory of Malcolm being kind of the thesis that it's just like, you are not in control and eventually all your systems will break and everything that you think is human ambition is going to fucking go sideways on your ass. All of that is like the dumbest shit in the world in these Jurassic World sequels, man. Like it's so painfully stupid if you try to apply, and I don't even mean like, I'm so far from a plot hole person. I am not a plot hole person. I kind of think about it a little bit with Jurassic Park more. With Jurassic Park, you're sort of forced into it because of the way that Kep wrote that original movie and the way that that thumbprint is still on this, though, because the way that Kep writes it is they're able to get out of the Jeep because they didn't put the locks on the Jeeps yet. And so they get out of the Jeep. When the Tyrannosaurus comes, it does this. And when it pushes on this side, they're on this side. When it pushes on this side, it goes on this side. Everything about that movie has a sort of like tick, 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 tick. And this is how everything breaks down. And Jurassic World copies all that without any of the intelligence, without any of the substance or the merit. It is like the park meets with inevitability, but there's no sort of like tower, like it's a Tower of Babel metaphor, but there's no like achieved wisdom that allowed them to get to this next plane. It's just repeating the same thing in a way that's far more nonsensical. And like, I'll never escape that. Like, no matter what else this movie is, it is just such a complete fumble of the core idea.
I feel like in the same way that we're not all plot hole people, is that we are very forgiving of something if it's obvious that there is a vision or an intent or a style to it. But the fact of the matter is that the first Jurassic World movie, it reminds me of like plain low-fat vanilla yogurt. It's just a bunch of, there's nothing about the filmmaking that is standout to me, which is already a problem when you're a Jurassic Park movie, and that's like half of the draw. You just have this movie that is so, it's caught up in its own plot minutia, and it's just kind of spinning its wheels, and you get none of the sort of like the scene geography of the original Jurassic Park is like etched into your brain. Like when you see the kitchen, you know where everything is. And that's why when that little mirror trick happens at the end of the Jurassic Park in that little like kitchen scene, it's why you're like, oh shit, I get how they do that. That was cool. Whereas here, it's just like everything is so formless. Everything is just like, oh, it's chaos. The park is so big. Everybody's running around.
They have a map that tracks the Indominus Rex, and yet there is no geography. I don't know what it means that it's in sector whatever. I don't know what it means that it's approaching this way. How are they intercepting it? Where are the cops coming from?
Indominus Rex is a perfect microcosm for this movie as a whole, because you have this dinosaur that they genetically engineer specifically to catch people's attention because they're bored with the T-Rex or whatever. So they're like, oh, we're going to make something cooler. And they put all this different dinosaur DNA together. And the result is a thing that looks exactly like the Tyrannosaurus, but also can like camouflage itself. And I'm like, oh, cool. So you mean it's something that can turn itself
very
literally invisible? And
it's
like,
the Predator.
You have dinosaur DNA.
Yes.
Give that shit like an ankylosaurus tail and like fucking stegosaurus spikes. And the most creative thing you could think of was just big velociraptor. It's like, this is just Jurassic World in a nutshell, where it's like you remade a new thing, but you made it like the old thing, but you're not doing anything with the new thing. So what fucking gives?
The exact moment when you can tell that this entire movie goes wrong. The kids have arrived at the park. They're with British nanny who's going to die the most horrible, cruel, violent death in the entire franchise. And they're in the hotel room, and the younger brother's really excited. He wants to go see the park. You hear the music building up. It's the John Williams score from that exact scene from the first film where they see the Brachiosaurus for the first time. The kid opens the doors to the balcony of the hotel room. And what do you see? You see the restaurants. You see the shops. You see Universal City Walk. If you live in Florida, or if you're like me and you live in California, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You see the most soulless advertisement in existence.
I mean, it just looks like a fucking theme park. It's like, oh, look, the majesty of fucking Universal Studios.
Universal Studios Hollywood. That's exactly what this fucking movie is.
People
it is a
say like,
commercial.
Oh, that's the point. No, it's not. The point of these movies is that you have a balance of awe and cynicism, because it makes each one of these things more potent when they're juxtaposed against each other. If you just remake the movie and make it all cynicism, then you're not saying anything. Like, we know. I walked into this movie knowing that this was like a soulless corporate product. It's your job as a filmmaker to prove to me that that's not what this is. And you don't.
When I hear that music, I want to see like those awe-inspiring dinosaurs. I don't want to see fucking Margaritaville.
Which, there's like a whole Margaritaville ad during the climactic dino attack.
Yeah,
so like
Jimmy Buffett's running around with the margaritas while the pteranodons are swooping down on everybody.
I already invoked the 21 Jump Street. I think that there's like a Lord Miller way to make this movie that deeply cynical. And it's, it would be to like have Jurassic World be like a dump. To just have it be like a poorly run piece of crap, like and then it's crap. Like the idea is that you're looking at something bad and rotten. But this is like, I mean, this does not have the intelligence to pull off gestures like that on any level. It is just like the most vanilla down the middle blockbuster. And for that reason, like, I also can't say that I hate the first one that bad, because it's like, I don't know. I mean, it does what it's supposed to do. I just spend the whole 2 hours waiting for it to stop. And then we segue from this movie, which is like this slavish devotee to the original for all the wrong reasons and in all the stupidest ways, to J.A. Bayona's follow-up, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, which for the first hour of it plays tremendously like Jurassic Park 2, The Lost World, where in that movie, in the Steven Spielberg movie, there's like a second island of dinosaurs, which they use to breed for the original island for the theme park. That's not what's going on here. It's just that Jurassic World has fallen apart. A volcano that was once considered dormant is now active and going to erupt. And particularly the Bryce Dallas Howard character and some new characters played by the dude from Detective Pikachu and the girl from the aborted Cowboy Bebop live action series and Bryce Dallas Howard are like, we are going to go to the island and save the dinosaurs from the volcano. And they rope in Chris Pratt, of course, and they go with Ted Levine of Monk fame. And they go to the island, just like in The Lost World. They have to round up all the dinosaurs, and there's kind of like a contingent of military dudes who are like, they don't care about this. In this movie, they're trying to like round up the dinosaurs to sell them. In that movie, they're just trying to like trophy kill them, basically. Whereas like they're on like a really Pollyannish ecological mission to like save the whales, except in this case, the whales are a raptor, Tyrannosaurus Rex. Let me just say this. The second hour of this movie, which we'll talk about, goes fucking off the rails so hard that you forget that there are rails. But for the first part of it, there are these rails, right? And the rails are the second Jurassic Park movie. It starts with Jeff Goldblum, God bless his soul. I hope he's getting paid for this shit. And he's like, how many times? He literally just says it. Like he just tweets it out. He's like, we should let the dinosaurs die, dudes. And he's right. He's objectively fucking correct, by the by. But anyway, the machine of capitalism drives in, gets the dinosaurs. And I think in a kind of clever little twist, it's sort of like it manipulates the good intentions of the good guys into helping them go and get Blue. Yeah. And Blue is the trained raptor of Chris Pratt. You don't care. It doesn't matter. She's like a main character, but whatever.
Somehow.
I'm so done with this shit already. You know who I wanted, like, as I was watching these movies, I thought of a bunch of different directors that would just be like, this ideal, that ideal. Jake's brought up Rian Johnson. I thought about Brad Bird. You know who would have done these really well? Who did a trilogy or part of a trilogy in the 2010s that revolved around a lot of CGI and a lot of speculative science fiction and kind of putting that all together, was Matt Reeves, who would have just fucking bumped these movies out of the park the more that I think about it.
Yeah.
But he's more willing to, in those Apes movies, make the people really cynical and really stupid. Obviously, because they're these prequels to Planet of the Apes, you sort of know that they're going to become the Planet of the Apes, that like the humans are going to lose. And so you're sort of watching them progressively fuck up and fuck up and fuck up. And that's sort of what this movie lacks. I sort of feel like none of these really get at that. But this one, Fallen Kingdom, does a little bit, because it shows how the kind of good characters are just sort of getting manipulated and caught under the wheel of these guys that want to sell dinosaurs. Now, of course, the reason that they want to sell dinosaurs is seed money, so that they can, if I'm remembering this right, and I just saw it the other day, they're trying to develop designer dinosaurs for military use.
Yes.
Specifically, they're trying to use the DNA of the obedient Raptor Blue, Chris Pratt's raptor, to mix with the Indominus Rex to make an Indoraptor that is like a little mini Indominus Rex that you can shoot at people with a gun.
Yeah.
You point the laser, you hit the click, it attacks. And I have to admit, this is a moment you can throw out any of my movie opinions. This is my second favorite film in the series, and the only other one besides the first one that I would consider rewatching.
I mean, just to take a moment, Jake, what's your second favorite Jurassic Park movie of the six? Assuming the first one is obviously the best one.
My second favorite movie in the franchise is Jurassic Park 3. And the reason it is, which is also, for the record, not a good movie. Jurassic Park 3 is a movie I can enjoy because, A, it is 90 minutes long. B, it is a movie that has no pretense whatsoever about what it is. A lot of these other movies, especially like Fallen Kingdom, Lost World, they do the whole, the dinosaurs are supposed to be like an endangered animal. Except the problem I've always had with Jurassic Park 2 is the fact that just like, well, you're trying to treat them like they're an endangered species of buffalo. Endangered species of buffalo can't murder people if you put them in a room with fucking like people like you can with fucking velociraptors. So yes, Jeff Goldblum was right. These dinosaurs need to die. Where was that attitude when you were in Jurassic Park 2? But anyway, it's the third movie because it is just them going to the island, and it is a simple, basically chase movie, excessively dumb, but there is enough craft in the filmmaking with the animatronics, with the actual not CG sets that's genuinely very impressive in that movie. But it is because it is the least movie in this franchise of legitimate consequence.
With the first Trevor Rao Jurassic World, there's like all this meta shit that it's trying to do. There's this sci-fi that it's trying to do poorly. I think what Jurassic Park 3 kind of is emblematic of to me is that outside of the original, the franchise is just kind of at its best when it's just some people trying to survive dinosaur situations. Yeah. Stop with the themes. Like in that movie, at least to my memory, it's been a long time since I've seen Jurassic Park 3. But in my memory, it's sort of like kid gets stuck on an island. They trick Alan Grant to going onto the island with them, and they just go try to save the kid. And there's like some InGen dudes that are like evil and bad or whatever. But
you have Joe Johnston at the helm of that movie, who I think is a great meat and potatoes journeyman director who will get in and do the job and do it well, even if the script isn't very good. He's the reason why I think the first Captain America movie is probably the best one.
Did he do The Rocketeer? Is he the guy that did he directed The Rocketeer?
Yes. Yeah, he did.
So I would say I think Jurassic Park 3 is probably also my pick, and then I think Fallen Kingdom's right behind it, which is just like there's one good Jurassic Park movie. There's one of these. Yeah. One. Yeah. Just one. Morgan said something to me the other day when we were watching Sergio Corbucci's The Great Silence. We were talking about coming together to record this podcast, which is like Jurassic World just clones Jurassic Park. There are 6 of these now total. We haven't talked about Dominion yet. What other movie has a moment in them that you even could clone, or has an idea in it that you even could borrow? Like if we were comparing to Star Wars earlier because it was like The Force Awakens is like A New Hope, but with Star Wars, you've got spin-offs, like the whole prequel trilogy is like a spin-off of Empire Strikes Back, the reveal at the end of that movie about Darth Vader. We've got an Obi-Wan Kenobi series that branches entirely off of Revenge of the Sith. There are multiple animated Clone Wars series. So within the context of Star Wars, there's a lot of derivative stuff, but it's derivative of not just one text. In Jurassic Park, there is one fucking source text because in the 30 years that this franchise has existed, no one else has come up with an idea. And for that reason, I kind of admire that the second half of the Bayona movie is just dumb. It just lets go of the wheel. You know, I think like the plot of the movie, insofar as it has one, is that they're trying to save the raptor Blue off the island. Nefarious people want to use Blue to make this fucking dino weapon. They have to use Blue's blood, which had to be transfused with a T-Rex. I think they take blood out of a T-Rex.
Yeah, they take the blood out of a T-Rex.
And it's just like, it's just a movie that has like the most of those types of moments where like Bryce Dallas Howard is like straddling a T-Rex and tossed around in a cage.
The Indoraptor plays with one of the nefarious idiots, and it winks at the camera right before killing him.
There's also climbs to the roof. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It climbs to the rooftop of this gothic mansion. It's storming outside. It howls at the moon, and I love stupid shit like that. Like, if this movie was as stupid as that one scene, I would eat it up.
I really think that the worst part of it is that the first hour tries to be something normal. And like, I want to give it a little bit of credit because I think that it subverts itself eventually, but that doesn't keep the first hour of it from just kind of being like, okay, we're going to the island. All right, these human characters suck.
It's just the whole thing is written by the same people. It's Trevorrow and one of the other co-writers of the first movie. If you let Bayona have creative input on the script, you would have a salvageable product just because Bayona is easily the second best director in this franchise.
Jurassic Park being so synonymous with dinosaur movies is a real problem because Jurassic Park, as I think we've established, is just not something that you can replicate. It's just not something that you could redo. No. It's the themes of it are too specific. They're too multifaceted. They're not really related to each other except through the context of that original script and their characters. So it is, I mean, it's just like true cinema. Like you just can't recreate it like that's normal. And so it's like what we're looking for, what people are looking for, is the dinosaur fight scene in Peter Jackson's King Kong. And what they're getting is this sort of like belabored science fiction series about theme parks and the folly of man's technological progression into the future. Who gives a shit, dude? I want to watch a raptor tear something the fuck in half. That is why I pressed play on this bitch. Trust me.
Fallen Kingdom
no one
gives you
cares.
John Hammond. It gives you the fucking
a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth, a sixth. And all right, so we've said his name. I'm glad that we're here because I think that one of my biggest problems with the original Jurassic Park, and I get why it's like this. I think that it works, but it's not my preference. John Hammond is a bastard.
Yeah.
He is representative of everything that is insidious and evil about capitalism. And I don't mean that he's not likable. That's obviously part and parcel with the performance being so charming. But that charm is sort of the sheep's clothing that masks that entire movie is happening because one of his employees was killed by a raptor in the opening scene, and he's trying to weasel his way out of that, basically. And he spends the whole movie just trying to like shirk responsibility after responsibility, you know, talking about how much money he spent and all this stuff. He's just an incredibly arrogant character. And I think that movie does kind of an okay job of reconciling with that because I think in the end they just make him really sympathetic. In all the other movies, most specifically the first Jurassic World, but in all of the other movies, they do nothing but lionize the guy, and I hate it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I hate it.
Awful. It's bad. Like most of his books, every character in the Michael Crichton Jurassic Park novel is an unlikable piece of shit, including John Hammond. In fact, especially John Hammond. He's easily the least likable character.
That's the problem with infusing Spielberg with Hammond, because then by definition, the rest of the series has to lionize Spielberg as this great artistic voice.
I'm going to pivot. Everything that these movies are references back to that original Jurassic Park movie, which means that they all basically root themselves on Steven Spielberg. And I will never get over the injustice of every single one of these movies making like 100 times more at the global box office than West Side Story, which is like a movie that just bombed for no reason. While each one of these marches on to $1 billion doing nothing but fucking running around with iconography that he created a long time ago and has moved on and done, you know, so much since then. He has furthered the art so much more, and we are sitting here fucking throwing $1 billion at people to make believe that they're him. So maybe that
get overqualified actors into this series. I mean, just the cast of Fallen Kingdom alone is ridiculously overqualified for this material. You have that other Hammond who's played by James Cromwell. You have Rafe Spall. You have Toby Jones. You have Una Chaplin. All brought in for
Chaplin,
this.
I think.
Isn't it Una Chaplin plays the nanny?
I think it's Geraldine.
Oh,
I don't know.
It's a Chaplin. It's one of Charlie Chaplin's children.
Yeah.
Got dragged into this where it's about dinosaurs and being weaponized. And now, just to throw in another wrench into the series, human cloning.
Yeah, there's like an entire subplot about that where it's just like, honestly, there's more there than there is in the dinosaur shit, thematically speaking.
Yes.
Just in the sense that we haven't proven 5 consecutive times that there's nothing there. I think this might be the right amount of ire to pivot into what is, I don't know, it's probably the worst film I've seen so far this year. I'm not going to say it's the worst film of the year, in that there are many bad ones which I have not seen. But Jurassic World Dominion is 2.5 hours of why in the hell didn't I go see Top Gun Maverick? It's really the most succinct way that I can explain the film. Having gone 2 films into the Jurassic World series without creating a single fucking character worth remembering, they are doing the Ghostbusters legacy sequel bit of just trotting out some dudes you remember. Jeff Goldblum is in Fallen Kingdom, but he is in it for like a scene. He's in it for a scene where he's doing something that Ian Malcolm would be doing in this world, which is like using his wisdom to fucking talk about life finds a way or whatever. Third movie, Laura Dern, Jeff Goldblum, Sam Neill are back, along with, I don't know, some new people, I guess, and some locusts. You guys want to talk about Jurassic World Dominion?
I would love to talk about Jurassic World: A Bug's Life.
I mean, What the fuck happened?
I felt so relieved when I saw your 1-star rating for this, because there's a part of me that whenever I rate something really lowly, it feels marginally unjustified. It's like, maybe I was too harsh, or maybe I was just too petty of it, or like whatever the fuck. But when I look at my friends' receptions, it gives me some kind of like pacification internally, just because I was sitting there for 2.5 hours waiting for something to happen. And I don't mean that the movie is uneventful per se, but you're just waiting for there to be like a hook, for there to be like a, oh, but this time it's the, or, and now we're gonna, and it never happens. It's just kind of like, hey, let's make a really convoluted Mission Impossible movie. Like this movie, midway, or not midway, after its first third, where it just does all of this really, really dry character setup shit. The second act of this movie is like a Fast and the Furious, like Mission Impossible Rogue Nation kind of thing, where they go to some like Budapest-alike place where there's the black market dinosaurs, and there's people dressed like Bond villains trying to smuggle them, and they have important sounding names, like the audience is supposed to give a shit about them, and you have one chick who shows up and she's wearing a 2010s like Lady Gaga outfit. It's just throwing shit at you, and it is the laziest movie I've seen since maybe, God, I don't remember the last time I saw a movie that is like proportionally has this much budget and talent in it and does nothing with them. But the movie everyone's comparing it to is The Rise of Skywalker, which I don't think is an accident. Firstly, because they share a writer. That's all you need to know. All the Jurassic World movies are actually written by someone who was attached to The Rise of Skywalker, which basically just kind of superimposes meaning on these characters like Alan Grant, like Ellie Sattler, and Jeff Goldblum, who I'm just going to call Jeff Goldblum. The thing that they're assuming is that the audience who's been there coming to these Jurassic Park movies for 30 years now, is that it assumes that you give a shit. And in the first movie, like, sure, there are a bunch of people who are unwittingly in a scenario, and I want to see them get out of it, but to treat it like it's this mythic reunification, like when they all meet up at the end, it's got like an Avenger shot of all of them in the same place. And I'm just like, I don't care that Alan Grant is fucking 70 years old and is just like here now. Like, I don't care. All of these people just happened to be at a place when a bad thing happened. And you're treating it like it's supposed to be this like, oh my God, the important. And they just run around pointlessly with just the worst villain in this entire franchise, who's just like, I'm kind of a bad guy, I guess. There's just nothing this movie does well on a meta level, on like a normal filmmaking level. Nobody in this movie fucking dies. It's so tensionless. There's no sequence in it that feels like it has any consequence or whatever. I'm not saying you need to kill characters, but in the other Jurassic Park movies, people got fucking eaten. That's what made you scared. And in this movie, a guy will be like riding a moped, and then a T-Rex will be like, and that's all you get. And it's like, what am I supposed to get from any of this, man? Like, I can draw like a little like, oh, Jurassic World's supposed to be like a meta commentary on itself, or oh, Fallen Kingdom's like half a gothic horror movie, whatever the fuck. What is this? What is this movie's identity? What is it even trying to be or do? Colin Trevorrow said he didn't make or direct Fallen Kingdom because he wanted to make Jurassic World Dominion. He said that. Why? He didn't do anything.
This is like the Go Home, You're Drunk Star Wars sequel trilogy, where Jurassic World is like The Force Awakens. It's sort of a, rehash of the original. The second one is highly polarizing, sort of quote unquote subversive follow-up that breaks with the tradition. And then the third one, they bring back the director of the original and they poop their pants.
They smear it on the camera.
Narratively speaking, first movie, Jurassic World. It's up and running. They make the Indominus Rex. It goes the way the bat goes. I want to misgender the dinosaurs. They're all girls here. The Indominus Rex, breaks out of the enclosure, wrecks the park. Second movie, the island's been abandoned. Volcanoes going off, and they get most of the dinosaurs off of the island, and they are then sort of released into the wild. So the third movie's
haunted mansion.
The third movie's setup. Years have passed since Fallen Kingdom, and now dinosaurs roam the earth freely. When I watch King Kong, as I mentioned earlier, and the dinosaurs show up on the Kong Island, I'm like, well, they're in a fantasy world with a King Kong. That makes sense. Here, I'm like, how in the fuck do dinosaurs live on Earth? It makes sense how they could live in Costa Rica, I guess, a little, because they make the megafauna and stuff. Like Laura Dern's like, well, these leaves have been extinct for millions of years. That is not true in Montana. So why are there dinosaurs there that are alive? There's like a raptor. They're in the fucking snow, and there's dinosaurs everywhere. They're cold-blooded. They're mixtures of frogs and dinosaurs. They cannot survive in the snow.
Maybe they could. I mean, these are genetic monsters. Not to defend like this setup or anything, but like Fallen Kingdom does have this perfect layup where, dinosaurs are now a natural part of the ecosystem. And here they're just like really, really big cows.
They are.
There's so many shots where they're just like waiting for them to cross. Like, that's my favorite thing about this movie. By favorite, I mean least favorite, is that like there's supposed to be these moments of like Spielbergian awe, like them crossing the road, and the little clone girl is on her little motorbike and she watches it happen. And the moment lasts 15 seconds. You look back at that first, and there is an entire like 3.5 minute long sequence dedicated to Laura Dern and Sam Neill first seeing a Brachiosaurus.
It's like the most well-blocked scene in movies. It is a fucking 5-course meal of a scene.
And it holds up. And meanwhile, this is just shot, reverse shot, feel something, I guess. Is this supposed to fall flat for me? Is that supposed to be like what's... You're telling me that the dinosaurs, who are all locked up in an admittedly rather large mansion, have spread throughout the entire Earth, and the U.S. military just let them. This is just not feasible as a concept. Yeah. Like, if you want to do them like fighting the military, that might be a cool idea.
Something these movies fuck up on is the idea that they try to present, and they really fuck up on it, is what happens when genetic evolution becomes widely accessible. They sloppily hint at it that that's where most of these dinosaurs are coming from. The ability to recreate a dinosaur has become commonplace, so that you're able to get like these black markets running around that be? In Malta. Right. There's no justification for it.
There are two contexts in which we have seen dinosaurs be created. I guess it's sort of 3 because there's like different companies or whatever. But you have it under Hammond, and then you have it under the Irfan Khan character in Jurassic World. Right, where they're like mega tech oil billionaire guys. They're very, very extremely wealthy because this type of research and hiring B.D. Wong's Henry Wu character is presumably very expensive. He is done so dirty in these movies. I really hate the way... I don't mind him being an antagonist per se. That is not my problem. It's just that he just sort of whines. It's just like every scene's like, you don't know what it's like to be an artist who makes dinosaurs. And so, like, this dude who, like, invented the process is like, it's so difficult. How the fuck is it widespread? What are you talking about?
And then he makes giant locusts who are inexplicably in the film just as much as the dinosaurs, and they're a problem. And the solution to this problem is for him to genetically modify one of the locusts that he already genetically modified, so it will spread a pathogen and kill all of the other ones. Jurassic Park has now just creeped up on the fact that it's just like, okay, making dinosaurs and the theme park and playing God is bad, but also eugenics are fine if you need to solve a problem. Like that's totally cool.
Feels like the Planet of the Apes parallel is probably the smartest way that this could go, where it's sort of, you've created something that you can't control, the dinosaurs roam the earth, people slowly start dying, civilization slowly falls apart, and then it's just people trying to survive. It's the girl in War for the Planet of the Apes, where it's like the little girl is just trying to live out the rest of her days. She's not like trying to be good or bad or anything. This presents a level of peaceable coexistence that is like kaiju movie, not Jurassic Park dinosaur movie. Like, it's like Godzilla. It's because like that's a fantasy, that's like a character, not an animal. These are just animals. And the way that should go is that no matter what your fix is, you're fucked. You've made a locust that kills everything and teams are fucked. Like, have there be consequences to these decisions. That's how you make a movie like The Lost World good. Hammond did all this stuff. We have this original movie, and now there's like just dinosaurs here. We don't know what the fuck to do with them. There's an interesting kind of question there when they're so widespread like they are in this movie. That's the part of it that I imagine that Trevor thought that he wanted to make, is what if I could make Dawn of the Planet of the Jurassic World, basically. But my friends, this is not Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. There's no Maurice. And Andy Serkis is not coming to save you.
One of my favorite thing about this, hands down, is the useless villain who is literally just John Hammond 4.0, but with none of the personality. And every time he's on screen, he has like a weird ad-libbed comedy moment that's just insanely awkward, and you just want to look away from it. But he's just like this guy who's like, oh yeah, he has no like ambition. You don't know anything about him other than I'm the guy who wants to make the money, I guess. The guy in question is Campbell Scott. Campbell Scott was in Jurassic Park because he's the guy who Wayne Knight says, we got Dodson here. Do you know who remembers Dodson? Me. That's it. No one else.
That scene is about how no one cares. The punchline of the scene is no one cares.
And the extra punchline to this is that Scott Campbell isn't even in the original film because the actor who played Dodson in the first Jurassic Park is currently serving prison time for pedophilia. So they decided instead, you know what? We're going to replace him with this guy. We're going to make him look like Tim Cook. And the Biosyn headquarters in the Italian Alps, where they're putting all these dinosaurs, so they're just putting them in a fucking park again, it's going to look like Apple headquarters. Mm-hmm. This is our satire.
This is a movie that ends with them putting the dinosaurs in a sanctuary that is less secure than Jurassic World was. I think the way that I put it in my review is that it's like, it reminds me of celebrity-endorsed car insurance commercials. I feel like I'm listening to Peyton Manning sing the Nationwide theme song. It's really not hard to just make a fucking set piece where a dinosaur menaces some people. But instead, this is like, we have a locust subplot. Laura Dern has to say like 30 lines, and they all are terrible.
Jeff Goldblum slid into my DMs.
Oh my God.
This shit will suck your soul out like a Dementor, just like until there's nothing left of you.
I admire how much Sam Neill doesn't care. Goldblum's just wandering about. Laura Dern's the only one actually putting in an effort, and God bless her for it. I think she actually does a good job at thinking, okay, this is how Dr. Ellie Sattler would be like in 2022.
Sam Neill's trying to deliver that performance on Zoom. It's so fucking green screened. You might as well, right? Just film it from the trailer.
I will give them a modicum of grace. This was the first blockbuster to resume filming during the pandemic. They had to pause in March 2020. They resumed in July 2020. But apparently that production did in fact go so terribly that it inspired that horrible, horrible Judd Apatow comedy on Netflix, The Bubble, which is about the making of a sixth film in a series with big reptilian monsters, and everybody's quarantining in a hotel and everybody hates it.
Two of the very worst films of this year were made from this one production. That's fucking nightmarish, to be honest. Did you get any sort of like subtext? Like, do you feel like the locusts and the counter locusts represent COVID? Is this a quarantine movie technically?
I cannot possibly
explain how
I
can't wrap my brain around that.
Jump off of a building. The music podcast that I run, one recurring concept that we are infinitely sick of is the idea of quarantine art, because we've been talking about it and reviewing it since 2020. Anything could have just been written into this movie because nothing happens in it. You could tell me that the entire second act was what they filmed in the resuming production part of filming, and I would believe you, because you can just do that with this movie. Anything can connect. Like, it's just people going places and running around, and then there's like action where the camera is literally 2 feet away from the subject and it's going.
Yeah, it's chase scenes where you have no geography. Just like flurry editing. They're in a truck, they're being chased, and it's fucking incomprehensible. I mean, it is noise.
The chase scenes, the incomprehensible edit, the god awful ugly color palette that this movie had. Just these three movies in general, I hate the way all of them look for completely different reasons. I think that the first movie, again, it looks like great value Walmart brand blockbuster. Everything is so plastic and sanitized and edgeless. And Fallen Kingdom looks the best of the three, but only in that second half. And then this movie, they're just like, you know what movie we should definitely take after in terms of lighting? Joss Whedon's The Avengers. That's what everyone's favorite part of that movie is.
Everything in Malta is a complete disaster. The Jason Bourne knockoff, the Atrociraptors, which they say like they're embarrassed to say the name of the species. There's maybe one good dinosaur scene in this movie, and it's the moment where Bryce Dallas Howard crashes into the jungle, and she's trying to get out of the parachute, and she hears something. And there is Ziniosaurus walks by, big, goofy looking herbivore with feathers. And he sees the deer, and he uses his huge giant claws, and he just kills the deer instantly. And then Hilarious. It chases after her a little bit, and she crawls into this swampy lake to try to get rid of it. And there's a little bit of tension there. I'm not saying it's a great scene or anything, but it's the only scene in this movie where the dinosaurs really come alive.
I like it when they stab the Gigantosaurus with the little claws. That scene is so funny to me because it's just all of these kind of copy each other. But this is the most egregious case. Jurassic World Dominion's climax is literally just Jurassic World's climax. Setting, dinosaurs, fight setup, characters who have to run around. It is the exact same thing, except it's shot worse. There is a single take in that, which is the worst single long take I think I've seen in a blockbuster in years. Everything's out of frame. Everything is ugly. It's way too dark to see anything. And you're just like, who thought this was acceptable? Who saw this and was like, yeah, cut, print, ship it?
I have a quick question. Why is the Tyrannosaurus Rex an ally of these characters? Somehow the power of the nostalgia of the 1993 Jurassic Park movie means that this character will simply show up and help Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard out of any scrape like they're Gandalf and the Tyrannosaurus Rex is the fucking Eagles. All three movies have a scene where the Tyrannosaurus Rex doesn't just show up. Okay, I get why it's happening. Revise my statement. It's because in the original movie, the Tyrannosaurus Rex shows up at the end and eats the velociraptor that's in the museum, and the fucking banner falls as he roars. And the characters use this as an opportunity to escape, knowing damn well that as soon as it sees them, it will eat them also. He's not a friend just because he helped them that one time. But these movies, every single one of them, all three of them have a scene where the fucking Tyrannosaurus Rex is summoned like he's Charizard and fights their enemies, and then literally there's a fucking fist bump thing with him and Blue. Her and Blue. I keep doing this. I keep misgendering the lady dinosaurs. They do a fist bump thing. And they walk off.
A samurai nod of acknowledgement. When we go our separate ways, but we respect each other.
Mugen and Jin and Samurai Champloo.
The worst shot. The shot that made me visibly, I squirmed in my seat when this happened. It's when in that scene when the T-Rex turns the corner and the shot setup has this big metal frame behind it, and it's a circle, and then the T-Rex's head goes in front of the circle, and it does the Jurassic Park logo, and I'm just like, how fucking dare you? You think you are to have earned that shot, where it's you take one of the most iconic Spielberg movie shots is the T-Rex smashes through the skeleton of the T-Rex in the original Jurassic Park, stands there, and the banner falls down over it, and it roars, yo, this is legit. And then this movie is it's too dark, you can't see anything, who gives a fuck about anything that's going on right now? Also, here's the logo, fuck.
I want to say also, it's the culmination of that moment is the logo, which is so obvious. Because there was another logo homage that happened. I'm talking about No Time to Die. There's a scene where the Daniel Craig character does the look back shoot, but it's just part of a set piece. He literally looks back and shoots a guy. It's not. Yeah. It is the logo. It is clever, but it's not the note that the movie ends on. It's just a clever little thing that happens in the middle of a fight scene where it's literally it's so cool. It's such a cool fucking incorporation in that movie. And then here it just feels like they just slam your head into a locker.
That's a movie that does that in a really smart way.
You can emphasize the intelligence of those movies, and I think it's good too, but it also just boils down to the fact that they have characters in them in most cases, and that they have set pieces. It's they have things in them that are exciting. I do not understand if you are just Joe moviegoer, what did you get out of Jurassic World? What, as an audience member, did you take away from this other than the sort of Ghostbusters patting you on the back? Did you remember this guy was in the movie?
What pisses me off the most is that there's no effort in this. What's even more infuriating is there was at least a little bit of effort at first. The original prologue for this movie that was uploaded a couple of months ago to advertise the film. Show a fight between the Giganotosaurus, the big new baddie in this one, and the T-Rex that actually is the ancestor for the T-Rex in this movie. At least then, there's a modicum of effort. Here, they cut that out entirely. Yeah, and they give you a fucking Now This video article. A real news organization contributed to this movie to be the fucking exposition.
For what, though? Like, what needed to be... There's so many directions, as Jake has already really effectively stated. They're just...
Yeah.
It's a 2.5-hour movie that has a lot of shit happening, but not a lot of plot. It just seems so easy to envision. It's like, okay, what if you just did a time skip and it's like Chris Pratt living in the woods and there are dinosaurs all around him, and we just dropped the pretense of this having a plot, and you just like, it's him and the raptor and they're doing stuff. Gennady Tartakovsky has a little mini-series. It's called Primal. It's an animated mini-series about a caveman and his dinosaur. It's like a T-Rex. And all they do is get into fucking dinosaur shenanigans. There's no dialogue. There's no bullshit. That is what a movie like Jurassic World Dominion is. Exciting, well-constructed dino shenanigans. I don't think anyone was going into this expecting a masterpiece or a great movie. But for the fucking love of God, can you clear Multiverse of Madness? Can you clear Thor the Dark World? I don't think you can with this.
No.
That's bad.
Very.
I can't even clear... I can't clear fucking Venom.
Yeah, it's kind of worse than Venom. It's like an hour longer.
This is immensely depressing.
What else did I want to touch on this damn movie? Oh yeah, as far as the legacy sequel thing goes, it does what the first Jurassic World does and triples down on the slavish recreation. They recreate the scene where Laura Dern rises out of the back of the car, takes off her sunglasses, and looks on in awe. She's looking at a field of crops that were destroyed by these biosyn dino locusts.
This doesn't make any sense. All these legacy sequels that try to be similar to The Force Awakens seem to misunderstand that there is an emotional impact due to the characters, due to the storytelling of Star Wars, but also just the way that Star Wars is that it puts a mythic importance on a lot of artifacts, on a lot of things that are inanimate. A lightsaber has an inherent kind of history and importance to it, no matter which lightsaber you're looking at. So when somebody picks up a lightsaber and the light goes and the score goes, you're like, okay, cool. There's a scene in The Last Jedi where Kylo Ren puts a fucking lightsaber through the big bad guy and into Rey's hands, and it's Anakin's lightsaber all stretched out like on the poster, and it's the coolest shit ever. Like, it's so powerful because it's using all these symbols. Jurassic Park does not... The only symbol of Jurassic Park that means a damn thing to me is the cup of water that Ian Malcolm does the little chaos test on because they built the little thing to fucking punch the table. That's the iconography of Jurassic Park. It's filmmaking. In the filmmaking. It's in Dean Cundy's cinematography. In Phil Tippett's animatronics. It's in the proto effects work of the people making the computer-generated imagery. It's in David Koepp. It's in these characters. There is nothing that you can just homage from Jurassic Park that just has power like that, because that's not what kind of movie it is. The original Jurassic World has that scene where they go and they find the Jeeps, and there's like the fucking 3D night vision goggles that the girl puts on, or the boy, I forget which kid puts them on in the first movie. But like, who cares? What does that mean? They're night vision goggles.
They linger on the remains of the banner that the older brother, the Love Simon kid, wraps up and uses as a torch. And it's supposed to be like, oh shit, they're using the banner. And it's like, who cares?
Who cares? There's one kind of callback in Fallen Kingdom where they come across the Jeep that Grant and the little boy were in the tree in, and they're kind of falling down. And it's a neat little homage because it's right where you see the ball also, and it just sort of like, it's like one of the only times when I see something, I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of cool. And it's like, they landed here, okay, all right, cool. I get it. I see. And then every other homage in this series, another one, this kind of goes back to the first movie. The opening shot of the first Jurassic World is kind of an homage to Jurassic Park, where Hammond witnesses this raptor being born. It's this old demon Phil Tippett thing. It's like, Rah! And the opening shot of Jurassic World is like a fucking CG raptor breaking out that looks like utter shit. Like, it just looks like trash.
The dinosaurs in this movies look terrible.
They look bad. They look so bad.
In the first two movies, they look phenomenal.
Yeah.
Because largely they are real things that the characters go and touch. The animatronics are stupendously impressive, and the scene integration is really seamless. And
really thoughtful use of lighting, really thoughtful use of the nighttime setting of the storm, which adds mood, but also adds a type of lighting that can help mask some of those early deficiencies with CG. Almost none of these other movies have that sort of thing.
Scene 2, which I mean is like a top tier Spielberg set piece. That's like up there with like Munich in my eyes, where it breaks free and stuff. You read the behind the scenes of that, and the behind the scenes, like, that was a nightmare to shoot because it was actually raining. It wasn't supposed to be. The animatronic was glitching. Like, it was just like all of this shit was going wrong, and like the fact that was a problem that they had to build around is just it is indicative of what kind of movie that was. That's not a problem that these movies are going to suffer from, and that in itself is my problem, is that they don't encounter the same stumbling blocks. Their art through adversity doesn't exist. It's not tangible. You can't feel that struggle of a filmmaker trying to make something come to life because everything feels so inherently lifeless.
It's a movie that Universal threw hundreds of millions of dollars at. They have a big CG budget, and they just do everything that they say in the script.
And they use it just to cross-promote their own products. I saw Jurassic World at AMC, and before the film began, there was a little crossover video where they had the minions yelling at cartoon dinosaurs going, banana, ah! And they were like, thank you for coming to see Jurassic World Dominion. We'll see you for Minions Rise of Gru July 1st. And I'm in my seat going, I don't fucking think so.
Jurassic World Dominions.
I'm going.
But we got to fit Fast and Furious in there, though. That's our other franchise. We got to fit Fast and Furious in here somehow.
Dom Toretto and the family are going to the Cretaceous period. Colin Trevorrow, new director for Fast 10.
I mean, honestly, I don't even like the Fast and the Furious movies, and those movies deserve better.
Every one of them that I've seen clears the shit out of this.
Oh,
like
100%. Not even a question.
Those movies have like awe-inspiringly stupid action scenes that are really legible and really fun, coherent.
This trilogy at its best is when it's kind of stupid like that. Is when it just kind of embraces that these movies are not good, but they are expensive. It's amazing to me that you can spend this much money and make this much money and probably not have a single image in any of these movies that I would really consider to be like a good image. Like, I'm going to remember this. I would make this into a desktop wallpaper. I would not that that's not how you should fucking judge images. I realize, but there's not even that. We don't even get, like, in Jurassic Park 3, there's a scene where they come into the atrium, right? It's all foggy and the pterodactyls are there. And there's another scene that kind of reminds me of the one you're talking about from Dominion, Jake, where the girl looks over and it's like a counter shot, where I think they're on like a raft or something, and they're like going around a bend, and there's just like all these dinosaurs up on a hill. That's like across the way from them. And it's, it just soaks in the awe of that for a while. It just remembers that this is a movie that you're watching in June with a big crowd of people, and we just want to see some dinosaur shit, man. I legitimately struggle to understand what level particularly Dominion delivers on, what level the trilogy delivers on, that it has been met with such success. I really struggle to understand it. More than I struggle to understand most blockbusters that understand the appeal of Fast 7. I do not understand the appeal of this. I don't.
The appeal of this is babysitting. These play at the box office like family movies. When I saw it at 2:30 on a Tuesday afternoon, I was surrounded by a bajillion families who just wanted their kids to shut up and be quiet for a little bit while mom and dad take a nap.
Maybe this one has more appeal. Lightyear opened up second behind this movie this weekend. So if this is babysitting, why didn't that pop off? What happened? I mean, I'm not asking why Lightyear isn't doing very well. I'm asking why what is plaguing Lightyear, which makes perfect sense. Fifth sequel, spin-off, bullshit concept, bad word of mouth, too convoluted, too stupid. No one really asked for it. Why didn't all of those things hit this movie too?
Iconography of Jurassic Park is so powerful and so omnipotent. Lightyear still has a degree of separation because its main character and in the marketing is like, oh, this is who Buzz is like based off of, but it's not Buzz. You look at Jurassic World, you look at the branding, you look, it's like that T-Rex in Jurassic World Dominion looks exactly like that fucking T-Rex in the first movie. So when people see it, there's the synapse in their brain that clicks, and they think that's the thing I recognize, and then they go see that movie instead.
The one good image out of this entire trilogy, which kind of taps into that whole legacy thing, is an attachment to a living creature from the first film. It's in Fallen Kingdom. It's when they're leaving the island, the volcano has exploded, erupted.
Yeah.
And you see the Brachiosaurus left behind on the dock, and it's kind of got like that sad moaning going. And you see it just like stuck, not knowing what to do. And then you see it like rise up and it vanishes behind the ash. And that's the one good image, because it's the same Brachiosaur that you see from the first film for the first time. And there's just that little bit of sadness in it because it's an animal. It's not the fucking Barbasol can or Hammond's cane or anything like that. It's something.
That shot is directly meant to evoke the death of this particular part of iconography. It's like that has like a meaning. Only moment
we have to like move on.
Where it's like there's a synergy here, and watching it die is meaningful. And that's the only image. It's the one image.
And maybe that's why we need to embrace the meteor, because maybe the meaning of this franchise can be achieved by it finally fucking dying. Just die.
Let the past die. Kill it if you have.
Legitimately, Universal doesn't have that many more chips that are as successful as this. They've proven that if they just fart out a movie, people are going to come see it. So I doubt it's going to die, but it was tapped out in 1994. Like,
mark my words, next 3 years, we're going to get us an announcement.
Are they just going to remake the original again?
I think they'll try a new angle. I think that they'll notice that they need something a little bit newer to try and incentivize people, but if they actually don't, they'll come up with something that's just different enough, and then it'll end up being.
Yeah. Possibly going to hit $1 billion, possibly not. But the returns have dropped each time. Even with, bringing the beloved legacy characters back, it's still not even going to make Fallen Kingdom money. So they have to do something different.
Root for James Cameron this year. God damn you to hell.
Avatar 2, the masterpiece. James Cameron, the prophet from the wilderness, returning to save us all.
I love
from the
Avatar,
evils of Kevin Feige. I love it.
I hope that J.A. Bayona gets like a project that he gets to make.
Give me
has he made anything since?
10 more Monster Calls, dude. You're a great director. Please
stay away from these people. Colin Trevorrow, choke. I hope. No, I won't say that out loud. I'll just think it to myself.
Oh, you won't say it, but we're all thinking it.
So I think that's pretty much taps us out on the Jurassic World trilogy. Certainly, I feel tapped out. I think Cole and I are going to be back next talking about Baz Luhrmann, new film, Elvis.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see.
Ain't nothing but I'm done.
We're going to see just how many needle drops that man can put into, what, a 2.5-hour movie? 3-hour movie?
2 hours, 39 minutes, although a 4-hour cut does exist.
Because it has a subplot with Richard Nixon got cut.
I'm sure that will be...
That's real.
I need that 4-hour cut immediately.
Pure, unbridled Australian chaos. Jake, thanks for coming on to help us deliver this miscarriage of justice.
Yes.
Cole, thanks. I hope that we never have to think about these movies again.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah. Hopefully they don't come back from extinction.